What is up, gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode on the channel. We'll be looking at imposter syndrome. What is imposter syndrome? What are the causes? What is the core causes of imposter syndrome potentially in your life and in your upbringing? What are these symptoms that imposter syndrome can inflict on you on a day-to-day basis? And ultimately, how can we take steps towards resolving this sense of imposterness in us so that we can build and live a healthier and more fulfilled life? Well, we'll get off and we'll start off by mentioning that imposter syndrome is essentially the belief or the negative self-talk that all of the accomplishments, all of the achievements that you have achieved in your life thus far have been the result of pure luck or some sort of other intervention that is not of your own making. It is the discrediting of the effort, the will, the push, the power that you put behind building your life and doing the things that are important to you and achieving the things that you're trying to achieve and you're working towards achieving, even if you may not be there at the moment, and putting that in the back burner and telling yourself that it's all luck and you don't deserve what you have. It may seem like a sense of humbleness. And of course, questioning oneself and asking oneself in terms of where you can improve, being honest with yourself. Sure, saying, yes, I'm proud of what I've done, but how can I get better? How can I evaluate where I stand right now and do what I need to do to fix my weaknesses? This is a necessary part, but too much negative self-talk, too much of this feeling of imposter syndrome can actually be counterintuitive. It can be counteract towards what you're trying to achieve. We all feel it on a day-to-day basis. Whether you're the CEO of a Fortune 500 company or you're just someone who is leading their local football team, you have to understand that part of achieving anything in life means a constant questioning of your doctrines and your beliefs. This is something that we are ingrained with from birth. I look at myself and I look at my personal journey. This is how I have had to experience my own imposter syndrome. You think back to all the steps that you've taken to get into the position you are today. So I look at all the work that I've done over the last 7 years to build my company, to build it to over 20 employees, to build it to a large scale revenue, to build it to recurring customers. And sometimes I question myself as, is this and has this all been the result of divine luck? Am I not worthy or am I not capable of sustaining this in the long term? There's always these questions that you're tackling and you're battling with in the background of your mind. Where does this come from? Well, as people who consider themselves high achievers that want and wish for things that are better in life, the main thing that you're always going to question is, what is the next step? And has everything that I've worked for been a mistake? Has it been a fluke? Or has it been truly the result of my ability to excel, my ability to make the right decisions, my ability to show up? That disbelief in your ability to bring and to will things into reality, if you let it fester, will take away the steam, will take away the power in your words, in your actions. And this is what I want to stop today. I want to be able to delineate between the power of self-belief or the power of questioning oneself and the actual acknowledgement of your own accomplishments in life. Usually this comes from your parents. When you are young, you're always put to certain standards by your parents, whether they're high standards or low standards. Your parents are going to be the people that you look for a sense of approval. Depending on that feedback loop that you receive from your parents, you may be positively reinforced or you may be negatively reinforced. And there's both sides of the spectrum. There's the side of the spectrum where you can do no wrong as a child and everything you do is and turns to gold, right? This is the child that shows up last place or just doesn't do anything and gets a gold medal or gets a pat on the back or gets a positive sense of encouragement from their parents without having earned that. And there's the other side of the coin where the standards that are set by your parents are so high that you're unable to ever match up to those achievements that they have in their mind. So no matter what you achieve later on in life, you always have that in the back of your mind. You always have this idea that what I've achieved is not enough. You may not know where that idea is coming from. You may not know where that nagging sensation is coming from, but it comes from your childhood wounds. It comes from the part of yourself that could never get the approval of your parents. So this is important to acknowledge in yourself, because understand that these subconscious triggers that arise within you sometimes don't identify themselves as clearly as we'd like. We always must be diligent to understand the back or that back voice, that backseat driver that is nagging at us, that is whispering into our ear, that is trying to drag us down and keep us from becoming the people that we're meant to be. Understand that imposter syndrome also comes from comparing yourself to others, looking at and being so accessible to the lives of others. The lives of others through social media, through Instagram stories, through Instagram posts, through TikTok, through all of the things that we hear on a day-to-day basis between our inner circle and the people that are outside of our circle. We have a habit of comparing ourselves to others, of looking at that person and seeing a sense of that highlight reel that they choose to put out, and immediately comparing how we feel in that specific moment towards and against the life of that person that we're currently seeing. And this gives us, again, a sense of feeling like what we're doing is not right. It's wrong, and we don't match up to the things that we're seeing. Too much of this can continuously reinforce that no matter what you do, you'll never match up to your peers. You'll never match up to the unlikely standards that you've set for yourself against the imaginary life that someone else is projecting towards you. This is the power, this is the downfall, this is the negative impact of looking and being so privy into the world of others. Understand that what you're being shown is not reality. Really, so much of what you're being shown, so much of what is fed to you is a highly curated feed of visuals, of text that is meant to overcome and meant to make up for the lack or that own person's sense of, let's just say, a shortcoming sense. And you're comparing yourself to someone else's 1%, 5% highlight reels. This is where that imposter syndrome comes from. This is where it's reinforced on a day-to-day basis without us even realizing it. All of this, your own upbringing, your own childhood wounds, coupled with the consistent reminders of your seeming inadequacy by comparing yourself to the visuals that you see through social media, create in your mind a consistent negative self-talk where you look at all the challenges that are in front of you on a day-to-day basis and you have an inner monologue in your mind that says, I'm not capable of overcoming this challenge. I'm going to get triggered by that specific scenario. I don't have what it takes to persevere through this challenge, this downtrodden. I don't have the ability to get through, to make that connection. These are all negative pieces of information that you are feeding into your mind. And without realizing it, over time, that negative self-talk that may be occupying 20% of your mind space becomes 30%, becomes 40%, becomes 50%. But without being diligent in continuously filtering out the thoughts that matter, the thoughts that actually have weight to them and that you can use to improve, and the thoughts that are just a outcome, are a symptom of a negative surrounding, a negative day-to-day that you're putting yourself in, that's where you can find yourself completely slipping into this negative self-talk that only gets worse and worse over time. We've looked at what the potential causes of imposter syndrome may be. What are the manifestations of imposter syndrome in your day-to-day? Number one is you may feel like a fraud or a fake. You have this nagging feeling that you don't belong in that position. You don't belong as part of that group. You don't belong in that specific connection. And this feeling never goes away. It's only reinforced as your negative self-talk continues to grow. Next up, you may continue to dismiss any achievement as luck or as a fluke. You will not give yourself the proper pat on the back when you need to, when you have specific achievements that you've worked very hard for. Let's just say you passed that test. You worked really hard to pass that test. You may chalk it up to, no, this is not a result of my hard work. This is just a result of the test being specifically easy. Other people must have done just as well. Or I must have got lucky on that multiple choice. Or. There's so many ways that you can use and you can manifest a discrediting of the efforts that you've put in. Why is this bad? Why is this extremely bad to discredit the efforts? I have a video that I've done in the past on my separate channel, Fit Design TV, called The Importance of Small Wins. The importance of small wins talks about how important it is to build yourself up, to build a sense of momentum, of movement in your life as you scale towards the grand achievements that you want. Rome was not built in a day. We didn't just wake up and all of a sudden this massive Roman Empire was built. It was built by small, calculated steps, taking daily over a long period of time. And as momentum built, these larger actions, these more momentous achievements were now possible. And this is what you need to understand, that you need to have the ability to celebrate your accomplishments, to refrain from discrediting yourself and build up that small sense of momentum that ultimately snowballs into something that is unstoppable. Third, there's always that fear, that background fear of being exposed, of being seen as inadequate or fake. You always feel like there's someone who knows more than you. There's someone just waiting for you, just waiting to hear something wrong from you, just waiting at the back door to spring up, to tell you no, everything you know is wrong. I'm exposing you. You're ruining people's lives with the words that you're saying. Even as I speak these words, there's a sense of imposter syndrome that sometimes overcomes even me. I've done over 1,000 videos on my separate channel, and even from this day, when I speak, I can catch myself when I'm speaking from a place of authenticity, and when I have this weird subconscious nagging voice in the back of my mind. My words, they just don't come out as cleanly. My voice doesn't project as loud. Believe me when I say that the mindset, the talk that you have in your mind, has a way of physically manifesting itself. Last but not least is the striving for perfection, right? This is the illusion of perfectionism and the inability to take specific risks. I've mentioned this separate times on this channel that chasing perfection is not a holy act. It's not something that should be commended. Most people that think of perfectionism, they think of themselves as so important that everyone cares so much about what they're doing that everything that they put out needs to be perfect, and they're unable to release anything that isn't perfect. It doesn't uphold those specific standards. Some people can look at that and see that as a sense of, I want to just give my best. I only accept the best for myself. But this is a coward's move. This is how you continuously reinforce this idea of feeling like an imposter. When you set such an impossibly high standard for your work, you give yourself an immediate cop-out. You tell yourself that it's okay that I didn't release that PDF, I didn't launch that book, I didn't make that video because I wasn't able to get to that perfect standard that I wanted. But I wanted to get there. I had the best of intentions, but as we all know, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Just because you have the intention to do something doesn't mean that you're entitled to the outcome of that intention. You only control the inputs, you don't control the outputs. So if you choose not to release that PDF or that book or that project, you are responsible for that. And you cannot blame that on your lack or the lack of perfection and your influence or what you wished to achieve out of that as being a perfect entity. So what are some strategies that I use day to day to overcome this idea, this sense of imposter syndrome? Well, number one is to reframe negative self-talk. When you catch yourself telling yourself that what I'm doing is not enough, that decision that I just took was wrong, you can reframe the negative self-talk as one, you understanding that you are deficient. As a human being, you can only get better. You can only try to improve. And this is the part of yourself that wants to improve for you and for those around you, that wants to get better, that acknowledges your downfall, that acknowledges your shortcomings, but also acknowledges the parts of yourself that are great. And by reframing this idea of negative self-talk as an opportunity to excel, an opportunity to get better, you start to look at things not as negatives, but as room for positive improvement. Two is that it's important to take a moment to celebrate your accomplishments and your successes. Few people talk about this. Few people say that it is important to take a step back, to acknowledge everything that you've done, no matter how big or how small. Take a moment and acknowledge the work that you've put in. Acknowledge the strides you made to improve in whatever it is, whether it's learning guitar, whether it's building a business, whether it's in becoming closer to yourself spiritually. Take a moment to step back, to acknowledge that specific thing, whether it's in writing it down or just thinking about it or taking a moment to reflect. Give yourself the props that you deserve. Give yourself the applause, the round of applause you deserve. Because if you don't do it, if you don't take a moment to acknowledge the work that you're doing for yourself to get better, so that you can get better for yourself and for those around you, who's going to do that? Who's going to have the ability to do that? This is where we fall so short. We expect things of other people. We expect people to step up to the plate when we should have stepped up to the plate all along. It's also important to consistently seek support and mentorship. Mentorship can be in the form of an actual mentor, someone that you can look up to, a Cato of sorts, someone that you can model yourself after. And if you don't have the luxury of being surrounded or having access to a mentor, then books will do. Reading the right kinds of books that are going to reframe your mindset, that are going to highlight to yourself the opportunities you have in front of you. This is as good a mentor as any. When we read a book, we tap into the knowledge, the wealth of knowledge of thousands of years of people that have made countless mistakes and have learned from their mistakes. Well, now we have the ability in one compact book, in a compact summary, to read into that, to feed off of the accomplishments of people that have heritage, that have done and been to where we want to go. So why make it difficult on us? Why not learn from the mistakes of others? Why not learn from the accomplishments of others? This is the power of reading. This is the power of opening up your mind and seeing what could be. It's also beyond important to embrace discomfort and to continuously take risks. A life without discomfort is not a life worth living. It is in moments of discomfort where you push yourself to your limits, to the edges of your limits, that you find out who you are, what you're made out of, and you force yourself to grow. You force yourself to grow mentally, physically, and spiritually. When you don't embrace discomfort, when you don't do the things that force you to be put into scenarios that feel wrong, that feel uncomfortable, you never find out what you're capable of. And when you don't find out what you're capable of, you remain in this closed box. You remain a shadow of who you could be. You remain a watered down version of who you're ultimately potentially capable of becoming. Avoiding discomfort also means avoiding risks. And anyone who's done anything worthwhile or noteworthy in this life will tell you that at the other side of a risk is a reward. And living a life that is truly fulfilled means going after and taking risks to achieve the rewards that you want. Believe me when I say that there's no life that is worth living that has a complete sense of fulfillment that does not involve risk. You will be faced with risk on a day-to-day basis. Embrace risk. Get excited when you feel that sense of risk. Risk comes in all shapes, in all sizes, in all forms, in all events. Embrace every single risk that you see. Take calculated risks. Take risks that are subsequently larger and larger. Expand your horizons and find yourself growing to be able to rise up and to take on these challenges. Last but not least is going to be to continuously develop a growth mindset. Understand this, that the person that you are today should not be the person that you have been yesterday. And the person that you are today is also not the person that you will be tomorrow. You are a work in progress. No matter how hard you wish to try to achieve perfection, there is always a version of yourself that is better. There is always a version of yourself that is closer to your ultimate potential. And though you may live your entire life and you may do every single thing right, you may put all of the pieces into place to become the truest part of your potential, you will never achieve 100% of your potential. But you can get as damn close as possible to that. And that is a life worth living. That's a life's journey. That's something that is worth waking up for every single day and going after. What is the contrary? What is the flip side? We're perfect? Well, then what do we need to do? What is the purpose? What is the sense of waking up and rising to the challenges of day-to-day life if we're already where we need to be? The journey is what is important, not the destination. The destination is cool, but anyone who's ever been to the quote-unquote destination, who's ever achieved that sense of success, that money milestone, that car, that house, will tell you that there's always another milestone to achieve. Something opens up in front of you. What does this tell us? This tells us that there is no destination. The journey is life. Understanding that the only way forward is forward and that there's no end is the eternal life path that we're all destined for. So make the most of it. Make that journey as exciting as it can and as fruitful as it can be.